Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the June 2023 Outdoor Ethics and Conservation Roundtable. It's awesome to have you here tonight, as it is to have you guys who've been here month after month. I really appreciate that. We all appreciate that. Tonight's agenda is we're going to have our opening. We're going to start with a safety moment on digital safety. Then we have Edwin Guevara from the Maryland Department of Natural Resources who talked to us about some phone apps, tech for teen outdoors. I think this is some really cool stuff he's got to share with us here. Then Scott Anderson will share a FAQ with us as he has been. Matt Durant will be giving us a teaching tip this month, which is a really great one as well. Have a few announcements and then some time for Q&A. So with that, I'd like to tell everybody Happy Flag Day. Today is June 14th, and June 14th is Flag Day because that's the day the Second Continental Congress decreed what the American flag was going to look like. So with that, please everybody be on mute. Scout salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Two. The Scout Oath. On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country and to obey the Scout law, to help other people at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. Scout law. A Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. 2. Outdoor code. As an American, I will do my best to be clean in my outdoor manners, to be careful with fire, be considerate in the outdoors, and be conservation-minded. Thank you very much. And Paula, could you please give us our safety moment for the evening?
I'll be happy to. This is one of the newer ones that I have found in the safety moment area. And I encourage everyone to go there pretty often because they're putting new ones in at all times. And so you'll never be out of luck with a good safety moment to use for your next meeting. Okay, so as Scouting moves to virtual and online platforms, we offer the following reminders to help keep kids safe. The below guidance allows to all online Scouting activities and meetings. Now note, some states may have legal requirements that differ from and even go beyond what is provided here. It is your responsibility to check and abide by your state laws and consult your local council when reviewing and applying the following guidance, which is not comprehensive. So there is a lot of interesting dialogue on this video, and I do believe can you see at the bottom here, Paul, is the link there?
Yes.
Okay, I can't see it on my computer, so that's why I was asking. Okay. Next slide, please. Now, some of the things that you'll have to remember when you're doing this is follow all youth protection policies. All youth protection policies still apply in an online environment. Use business-oriented conference platforms that include good safety and privacy features instead of platforms with other primary purposes, such as gaming. Regularly review and implement the latest security features of your chosen platform to avoid unauthorized visitors or other security issues to your meetings. Okay, so safeguard personal information. That's pretty important as well. Collecting personal information from youth under 13 is not recommended. And then in the safety moment paper itself, it has several different resources that you can go to and find out even more information. And I'm telling you, that's where the rubber meets the road, is in those resources, because every time I do one of these safety moments for my good friend Michelle, after I get done reading all of the resources, I know more than what the safety moment says. So everybody read those resources. Also, there is a place where you can get all the information about social media and youth protection. And so everything on here is pages. It's Scouting Wire holds this kind of information. Okay. So if anybody has any questions about internet safety or procedures to running a video or some kind of a training online, please check with your state and your council and maybe even your county to find out what is doable and what they advise against, because they have a better idea of what kind of platforms in the area are safe. So if you have any questions, put it in the chat, and my good friends Paul and Matt will answer them. Does anybody recognize this one on the right under the pictures, that advice for teens, where that came from?
Nope. We'll have to ask Michelle.
Yep. And that, I believe, is the last page.
Yes. Thank you.
And thank you for changing it for me, Paul.
Okay. Get back here. There we go. Now, tonight, we've got Edwin Guevara, who's with the Maryland Department of Natural Resources. Edwin wrote an article that went out in the Habitat that goes out from Maryland DNR quarterly, monthly, something like that. And it was a great article on apps and how to use them with kids in the outdoors. So I followed up with him, and Edwin has agreed to talk to us today. And I think he's got a great presentation for us. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Edwin.
All right, thank you. Okay, so yeah, like Paul mentioned, he was approached. I was approached by him, and to be clear, it's seasonal. Like the magazine that we put out called Habitat with the Department of Natural Resources comes out, it's winter, spring, fall, and summer issues. So that was basically, I believe that was our spring issue, and we just wanted to. Spring is a wonderful time to get kids to go outside, and nowadays it can become a little more challenging, even though I should let people know to not believe everything they read on the internet. I do see a lot of posts on social media like Facebook that show a bunch of bicycles in front of a house, and it says that was how we always grew up, and where that doesn't happen now. But I live in Reisterstown, Maryland, and that happens here all the time. There's always bicycles outside, so it's still alive. That spirit of kids going outside is still alive. The main difference is that now they are also more attached to technology, for better or worse. So to make it for better, I thought of what apps I use that are fun and interesting if you're a person that's outdoorsy, or even if you're a person that's outdoor curious. You like the idea of the outdoors, but maybe you don't know what you're looking at when you find things. So I put together this presentation, and I hope people enjoy it. They learn something new, or if you already know all this stuff, wonderful. That means you can take the presentation. I can send it to you. You can go over it with other people as well. I just put it together in the last few weeks. It's not like this is something that was like proprietary. I just put it together because I like to use these apps. So if we can move to our first slide. I'm going to assume that most of you guys, just like me, owns, if not if not the National Audubon Society, maybe it's the Sibley's Guides. There's a few others out there. I actually have a guide to the birds of the Caribbean written by James Bond that I found at a thrift store up in Connecticut back in 2004, and it was like a second edition. So I love going out into the woods, especially I'm in my 40s now, and when I was in my 20s, I would carry 3 or 4 of those books in my backpack, and some of the things became a little more challenging to identify, whether it was because the section or the part of the United States I was in wasn't specific to some of the guides, or because if you're trying to identify a bird and it just flew off and you're trying to look through the guide for what bird species it is and you're not a birder, it can become a little challenging, which is why it was good that Barnes and Noble and other stores had those like one-pager laminates that you could take as well for more common things. Realistically, though, if let's say a young person's really interested in just getting out there and doing everything, all the guides together come out at about $400, and they would make a big bulk on your backpack. So if you're a mycologist, and you want to, I mean, you're going to know most of the mushrooms, but you're going to just want to take one guide. Or if you're an entomologist, then you would need 1 or 2 guides. But if you're a naturalist that wants to know everything that's out there, the apps we're going to discuss today in our presentation do a little bit easier to carry everything in something that, weighs a couple ounces. But these books still have their value, and if people have time to collect them and have them as part of their home, you take digital photography, you can come back home and look through the guides. That's still very good. Plus, we need to remember and keep continuing to use things like this, because honestly, print media is how you really own something nowadays, as opposed to an app that they can discontinue and remove from the store, and then you could lose access to that. So if we can please go to our next slide. All right, so up till last year, that would have been May of 2022, I was a high school teacher for the last 14 years. And before that, I was an outdoor educator for a place called Nature's Classroom, and they have sites throughout New England. I worked there for 4 years. So 18 years teaching. I started from 2004 to watch the transition of kids not having cell phones to maybe 1 or 2 kids having a flip phone. If they had an allergy or something, they had to call their parents. And sometime around 2008, 2009 till now, that's when kids started to you started to see more iPhones and Android phones, and it became more of a new way for them to be entertained all the time, sometimes with good things, sometimes with questionable things. And it became harder as a teacher to try to supervise what they were doing, especially if you have an outdoor class or an indoor class. So finding ways for kids to engage with their phones while they're outside makes it pretty good. Everybody wins, I think, because they get to use their phones, but they also get to learn that they can learn something with their phones. So it's young people are going to keep using technology. So it's a good way to start using those phones. So if we can please go to the next slide. Like I wrote there, attitude is everything. So especially when it comes to like preteens and teens, they are there's a stage in a kid's life where they go to, oh yeah, you're my hero too. I'm going to be a little contrary and push off. So obviously if we start, telling the older kids, oh, cell phones are going to rot your brain, they're going to probably go the opposite way. There's always kids that are like, oh my gosh, I should reconsider this. But for the most part, a normal teenager will be like, no, I want to use my phone and I want to make TikToks or whatever. So the best way is to go with a flow and show them, well, you can use this for something that's really cool as well, that can help you not just do community science, or it's a newer term that people are using for citizen science. And you can learn something new. And if you really like mushrooms, fungi, or if you really like insects with bright colors, this is a really cool way you can use technology. So like I wrote here, we work as everybody here is somebody that works to engage young minds, whether it's to teach them all the cool outdoor skills that I've seen scouts use throughout the times I've been a naturalist at state parks, to before then. Now technology becomes a more present term. So even if it's not your favorite thing, finding a way to be enthusiastic about it, learning to use the software, learning to, download iNaturalist and have it on your phone, and then know what you're showing them when they're using it will get them more invested than opening it for the first time and not knowing what you're doing. You'll kind of lose them. So it's a good way to sell the idea that, hey, this is fun. You're here because you like the outdoors, and you can do cool things and learn a lot of stuff while you're using your phone. So with that, if we can go to the next slide, I'm going to cover three basic apps that I enjoy myself. And those are iNaturalist, Seek, and Merlin. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about a few other apps as well. But instead of talking, since I would need to be outside, I had made a few 2-minute videos, short videos, that show me going outside and using this app so that you can see firsthand what it looks like when you have the phone in your hand and you're opening up your phone and you're let's say you open up Merlin, which isn't going to work well because I have my background blurred, but that's why we have the videos. So if you can please go to the next app, the next slide, we have our first video. So please enjoy, I hope.
Okay, so we're going to look at how to easily identify and add apps on the Play Store in my case, but it looks very similar on the App Store for iPhones. So the Play Store icon to find certain things like iNaturalist, be like iNaturalist. And that will be the first app that shows up. If you want to look for, and then obviously I have it installed, so it says already open. But if I were to look for Seek, it would do the same thing, and you can see it's that app right there, and it's made by iNaturalist, the same company that does the Seek app. So they both do the same app. They both do similar apps, and we'll talk about the differences between Seek and iNaturalist. Another app is Merlin. Merlin Bird app, and it's right there. That's the icon, and then you would download it as well. Be warned that the Merlin app, even though it's free, it does need about 1.5 gigs of data because it carries a packet of all the bird calls in your area, which is great to identify them by sound. I'll show you some of that later. And the next app is Globe Observer. It's probably the one I have used the least, but it's also free. I have it on my work phone. I might install it today, but this is what you would do. You click install, and then it goes ahead and installs it, and then you can open it, and then it'll ask you to register, accept, and then it'll give you some menus of things you can do. And as you can see, with most apps, when it first installs them, it installs updates and it installs other ways to use it. Then you can create an account, which I already have on my work phone, so I'll show you from there later. All right.
Okay, so I don't like to assume that everybody already knows, how to open the App Store and how to download it. I'm not trying to speak down to people, but it's, sometimes with instruction, it's best to assume that maybe people will want to learn how to do it just in case. And that's why I was showing you how to find them. But this presentation and this is being recorded, so you can always re-look through the video and see what you're going to use. So the first app I'm going to demonstrate to everybody is called Seek. And Seek is really neat if you like to use things and learn on the fly. I'm going to show you an example in the next video. So I'm not going to talk about it because I'm probably going to talk about it on the short video. But if we can go to the next and play that, perfect.
We're going to start off by using Seek. It's an app made by iNaturalist. First thing it does is identifies which location I'm in, Reisterstown, Maryland. So then you click on the camera, it gives you some warnings, kind of like Pokemon Go. Click continue, and then even in a place like my backyard, it'll start by identifying some of the things it sees here. it'll go by plant types, but if you, yep, spearmint definitely was here. Depending on what it can focus on, it'll try to tell you what some of the plants are. But if it cannot, at least it'll tell you it's dicots. But it did say spearmint for a second, and the problem with, at least with the spearmint, well, there it is that it's with some other garden variety plant. We go over here, and it's saying daisies, families, and allies. Try to focus on that dandelion, and you got to play around with it. But if you move around, eventually it'll pinpoint exactly what it is. Common dandelion, it's headed there for a second. And then you move to something like this, which I've heard called wild strawberries or mock strawberries. And mock strawberry. And then we go to something more obvious over here, like the white clover. And it should pinpoint it as white clover. It's saying Alsike clover because it's kind of pink and white. But if we go over here and get a better view, and it focuses, at least it'll tell you that they're clovers, and then you may be able to look them up. But like any app, you just got to walk around with it and try to find. So this one's specifically white clover. So a pretty cool app to use, and it tells you what things are on the floor.
All right. So Seek, it's a good app if you have a good, if you're in a place with good phone signal. And like I was showing on the video, it'll take a second and you have to move around. But eventually, if you get what you're doing, when you're looking at the focus, it will start to tell you what it is. Obviously, I was recording with one phone while I was using the other phone, so it was a little harder to do it and have the extra cash to hire a cameraman to follow me. But it's a really good app to use, and it's pretty cool to see it try to sort out what family it's in, and then if it focuses on it to tell you specifically what it is. So I learned that we have Alsike clover on the side of my house. And if you look at it closely, it's not all white. It does have some red mixed in there. So the next app that we have, we can go to the next slide, is iNaturalist. Seek works for plants and it works for insects as well. It works for pretty much anything that's alive, and so does iNaturalist. They're made by the same company. So for iNaturalist, using the same database that Seek does, I'm going to show you in the next video. So it's going to be a little bit shorter, but I'm going to show you identifying something other than just plants. So if we can go to the next video.
So we're going to use the iNaturalist app now. When you open it up, it shows your observations. Some of the stuff we saw earlier with Seek, it identified already when I used iNaturalist as well. You click on that white plus sign and you take a photo. Something real basic here, like my cat at home. Hi, Keanu. Take a photo and see what it tells us we saw. So even with something like a cat, it'll be like domestic cat. And it's funny because cats shouldn't be outside, but it shows this cat in the snow. But it's something as simple as that. You can even go outside and, for example, you can use it on the same stuff we saw earlier, the white clover. So let's take a look outside real fast and use it on some of the white clover and see if it does a good job identifying it. And the main difference being that with Seek, it tells you on the fly, live as you see it, as long as you have enough cell phone signal. But for example, take photo here, take a photo of the white clover, get a good photo, and then you snap that shot and you confirm it. And then what you'll be doing is clicking on the what did you see, unless you want to straight up identify it. I'm going to come to the shade so people can see better. What did you see? And it'll tell you a list of things seen nearby. And it's weird with the framing because of the, so it'll be, you know, say white, it'll say clovers, and then Alsike clover, which is that mix of red and white. And it'll give you like some of the photos of white clover and some of the ways you could see it. And you can even compare it to your own photo. But I'm going to go ahead and select that. And it's identified as white clover. Click. And it saves my observation. So it's a really good app to actually note down and mark observations of things you've seen. There you go.
All right, leave it right there, because if everybody notices this last frame, there are some parts of the pictures of things that I have taken before that have like these little pink check marks on them. And what that does is there are people, yes, seek is flora and fauna. I see a question down there. One of the those little red or pink marks means that somebody else that's maybe a bit more adept in the field has confirmed that what you have seen on your observations is what's there. Also, some observations you might get like another mark on there, and it says that somebody's changing what you saw and explaining why they think it's a different species, which has happened to me before with fungi. So that is how you use iNaturalist. It's really fun, and it keeps a good list of all the things you've seen. So you can keep them there. I have hundreds. It looks like 435 observations I've made in the last few years. And if we can go to the next slide, I'm going to go ahead and look at Merlin. Merlin is an app that I've been using only for about a year, and I love it. And I'm going to show you guys how to use it in the next video. And after that, I think that's the last video I'll have. I'll talk a little bit about some of the other apps. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you.
All right, everybody. The next app that we're using is the Merlin bird app. And there's ways to identify the birds by putting your zip code, or you could just click on current location. And then you can start by, you know, putting the size of the bird. And between a crow and goose, it gives you all these options, and you continue and put the colors that you think you saw the bird. So, you know, let's go with gray here, and then it'll tell you, or it'll prompt you, ask you what you think, where you saw the bird, and it goes on from there, and it gives you some cool options of what the bird could be. My favorite portion of this, and is why it takes so many gigabytes, or at 1.2 gigabytes to download the app, is a sound ID. I'm going to be quiet and show you guys that when I just click on record, it'll record the sounds of the birds it hears around me, so I don't even need to see them, because sometimes with phone cameras it's hard to see any birds. I'd already heard the mourning dove, and I apologize for how this looks. A house sparrow, gray catbird. And sadly, a few minutes ago there was a hawk, but it's not going to record it because it's not making a call right now. But it can identify a lot of birds by sound. You click on stop and it confirms what you heard, and you can play the calls back. That way you can see if it sounds similar to what you heard. I think that's pretty cool.
All right, so yeah, Merlin is definitely a really cool app to record the sounds of the birds. But even if you can't catch a recording of what the bird sounds like, you can always just go on that. It gives you that key to tell you what color it is. You tell it what color it is, what size it is, and what you saw the bird doing, and it can narrow it down. All right, if we can go to the next slide. Some other free apps that are worth checking out is the Globe Observer. I haven't used it a lot, but I got to try it out. And the cool thing about the Globe Observer is it lets you do like a mosquito mapper or a tree cover or a cloud cover databases, and then you take the photos. You have to line it up with where it's telling you to to aim it with the, the either aim it north, south, east, or west, which if any kids are doing orienteering, they can use their compasses for that too. And you can actually time it for when the satellites go over the planet. They can compare the data of the clouds you're taking pictures of with the data that the satellites are doing, and that helps confirm that you're both are seeing the same thing. There's another app called Flashlight and Magnifying Glass. I actually have that one on my work phone, and like it says, it turns on a flashlight, and then it will really, I wish I could, but it'll really zoom in to what you're seeing. So like, I don't know if I had like, it's harder to see, but if you play with it, it acts like a magnifying glass, and it can allow you to take photos or close-up shots of things that you would have to do with your phone, but it also uses a flashlight to magnify it. And also, if you're looking at a nature guide and you're doing a night hike, and you can use this app to help you read it without having to use, I have to use readers. And it also helps you use the flashlight to magnify it. Then there's Star Tracker, which is a really cool app that superimposes, as you move your phone and you rotate it, it superimposes the constellations out there. So when if you're aiming right at a constellation like the Big Dipper, that's pretty easy. You'll overimpose it with a phone, and it'll show you that it's there, and then you can go from there and see the other constellations, and it'll tell you what they are. So it's a really good one for night hikes. As is the Merlin app if you're going like on an owl hike, so you can record some bird calls. I remember last November I went out it was like 6 in the morning, and it wasn't quite bright out yet because it was November, and I recorded what I thought was a screech owl, but it ended up being a it wasn't even a screech. It didn't even sound like a screech owl, but it was screeching. It was a baby great horned owl, and the app told me specifically it's a juvenile great horned owl, so that was pretty cool. If we can go to the next slide, one app that's worth checking, but you have to be cautious with it, is All Trails. All Trails is free, and it helps you find new trails, and it gives you detailed information about them as well as trails you might be familiar with. But there are some issues, including people that I have talked with at my job, that have noted that sometimes, and there's an article at the bottom with a link that'll tell you in detail what the problems are, but they line 3 problems: inaccurate information, sometimes all the information isn't up to date, unofficial trails, so you might end up incorrectly in somebody's property, and we have seen lately that can be pretty troublesome. And then negative ecological impact on sensitive areas. If there's a plant or an animal that's endangered there, and you could be disturbing their mating season, or if it's a plant, you could be trampling them. All Trails won't tell you that. So it's one of these things where you need to use it and maybe compare to other reviews of those trails before you just use the app and go out there. But it does have benefits that you can discover new trails. Just research them before you go to them. Don't just go and show up somewhere where it might be a little bit dodgy. So for more information on alternatives to All Trails, since I don't want to talk the whole hour to you guys, because I could imagine that'd be a little bit boring, check the link. It has alternatives for All Trails, and it tells you why those problems are so, more accurately, why that's so problematic to have those 3 problems. So if we can please go to the next slide. I believe that is the last one. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And I think this is a time where if we have any questions, somebody can read them to me and I can answer them. But you can also email me at the email below, and I can correspond with you.
If you have any questions, please put them in the chat right now.
Oh, I see that there's something asking for the link for Star Tracker. If you just type Star Tracker on the Play Store, it is the very first app that shows up. So that would be open. Skyview is another good one. Star Tracker and Skyview are 2 really good apps for that, and you can play around with both of them and see which one you like. Star Walk, I hear too. I researched ones that I found that were free and not as buggy. There are also some paid apps out there that if I had, I tried to show, especially when I do public outreach, people that maybe can't afford to pay for things, how to use some cool free ones. So all the apps that I showed you today are free of charge. All you do is download it. And I think what they get out of it is that a lot of the data you put on iNaturalist or Merlin is data that helps those populations at least document where they are. That said, and this is important, I'm glad I remembered, if you see something super rare, like an endangered animal, you might not want to tag it on something like iNaturalist, because you never know if there's any poachers that scour apps and things to know where they're looking at things. So I know that specifically I get to do work with bog turtles and wood turtles and tiger salamanders. And as much as I like taking pictures of them, I would never post where I found them because it could get the animal in trouble. We've found out a lot of people poached, and B, my boss would never let me live it down. So yeah, do we have any other questions for me specifically?
There are a couple in the chat. Beth Hesser says, are there any areas that you have found teams to be particularly interested in?
Teams seem to be very interested in night hikes. There's some really cool things you can do in night hikes that sometimes don't involve traditional living nature, but they do involve nature, like taking a couple of pieces of quartz out there when it's nice and dark and rubbing them together and seeing the piezoelectric effect, or explaining to them how night vision works and just listening and stargazing. So for stargazing, it would be great. But again, you might not even need the app if you're an avid stargazer, but it helps them, the kids that want to know what the apps are. It'll show them where the moon is. Some of the apps will show you where, like, the International Space Station is going through at the moment, so you can predict when it'll pass in front of you. So night hikes are popular for using some of the apps. And also after days where it rains, especially where I live in Maryland, it's good to go on like mycology hikes. There's a specific park in Maryland called Oregon Ridge. And every time it rains on a hot summer day, the next morning I go there and there's all kinds of cool slime molds. And there are, some fungi that will be, very, very brightly colored. That's really cool to look at. And sometimes, at least when I was a high school teacher, a lot of students would be interested in that kind of stuff. As long as they're out of the classroom, they're usually interested. But it's especially since this group has people from all across the country, interest might be regional. So, if you live in a place like Wyoming, it's probably going to be a lot more interesting to stargaze because of there's less light pollution. And if you're in a place like maybe Washington State, there's that whole cool, like, temperate rainforest you can explore. So depending on where you are, you just got to try it out and see what sticks with the kids. I see somebody named Sarah Holtz has her hand up.
Hi, can I make a quick comment? So with one of the BSA awards, the Distinguished Conservation Service Award, I've done quite a few projects with Scouts where I've taught them how to use iNaturalist, and they've used it as part of the survey they've conducted on their project site to make observations of all the plants and wildlife living on that site as part of an assessment of what is living there. And then afterwards, they can go back and do the same thing. And you can see, for instance, maybe there's more wildlife after you create a pollinator garden, or if you've removed invasive species, then, you can go back and those species are not there, particularly the plants are not there anymore. And I've been able to show Scouts how to create a project that is their own based on the geography, so they can create like a polygon around their project site, and anybody who makes observations on that site, their data can also be part of the Scouts data set for their project. So it's cool to watch other people make observations that then contributes to the Scouts observations and understanding, because you can see over time trends. You can see what was there 10 years ago when people might have made observations as they were walking through the park. You can see the same thing last week. You can see observations over seasons. So if you weren't there in January, but someone else was, they might have made observations. You can use that data. And since other people verify the observation, it's like a third party kind of assessing what that is. It's not just like a Scout or maybe a not professional person identifying, it could be people who actually are naturalists or whatever. So I was just going to add that that's been an interesting way to teach scouts to use this app.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's very good to see year by year what's been observed, and the apps give the freedom to you folks out here watching this today to incorporate it into like community science projects, to maybe like a 10-year study of what you have observed in a specific place. So it's up to you to get creative with it and do what you think is best, for not just for the kids, but for the environment as well. They'll get into it if you have a cool plan for them to monitor things. So that's a really good point, Sarah. That's a really good observation to do with them. That's really good.
Okay. There was a question here. Do any of the apps have something like friend groups?
Oh, I know for sure that iNaturalist itself has like a community page, and I think, let me see, I'm looking at their website now. Yeah, because if you went to iNaturalist.org, it'll give you the community, and there's a forum and journal posts and everything. So you can be very involved with the people at iNaturalist if you make an account. Then you need to make an account, but it's really good for that. I know that Merlin is ran through the University of Cornell, through Cornell University. So they actually have their own community thing they do as well. So a lot of those groups can, and a lot of these groups also might have like other social media pages or Discord chats or Facebook pages and so on. But yeah, I believe somebody just put something in the chat. Yeah, Sarah said in iNet you can also join projects. So that's pretty cool. It gives you a good idea of what you can do on them.
Lillian asked about the bird calls and regional dialects for birds. And
Okay.
she's not had good success with the Cornell, the Merlin rather, bird calls in California.
Okay, that's really good to know. There is another app that I was looking at, but it might be tied to the Cornell app, which is the bird app, and that one is, I know I have it on my phone because I looked at it yesterday. BirdNet. So you might want to try bird.net, but that's also linked to Merlin. But that's interesting. I think that the more people use it in all the states and the more things they get recorded, hopefully, the more it'll expand to be useful. Because I have a friend who just used it in Anchorage. She went from Maryland to Anchorage, and she said it worked pretty well there. So that's good to know. Next time I have a chance to go to California, I'm gonna make a note of that and see how it works, because if it's wonky, that's good feedback, and that's really good feedback to give the people that designed the Merlin app, because that might help them improve the tool.
I just downloaded it, and I did notice that it gave me two options to download bird calls. It gave me one where I could just have for my region, and one for like all of North America. So it may be that you just you didn't download the right region or something like that. I don't know. That's a possibility.
I downloaded everything too, but that could be that's a good observation. That could be very much what's happening with it. Yeah, Lillian just said that the birds vary a lot, and that is correct. And some of the bird calls that when you record it and you look at the bird, it'll give you like 15 different recordings of different bird calls. But even here, I noticed here in Maryland that like a red-winged blackbird that has like a very peculiar call had a slightly different, but a different call altogether in Western Maryland, about 4 hours west of here. So that was a good observation, and I should use the Merlin app next time to see if it records it with that funky little different call it had in Western Maryland. So those are good things to know. And honestly, with this technology, the longer it exists, the better it's going to get, because there'll be more troubleshooted problems for the things that you guys mentioned, like maybe it's the calls are a little bit different here or there.
Okay.
Anything else?
Um,
If anybody does have any questions and you think about them after this, yeah, feel free to email me. My email's right there, and it's most emails in DNR are the person's first name dot last name dot at maryland.gov. So I'm always available. Thank you,
Thank
Scott
you.
Anderson. Thank you.
Evan, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That was wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you guys for being so awesome and so nice to me. I appreciate
All
it.
right. So can we move over now and we have our FAQ for the evening. Scott, can you take us through this, please?
Now, the topic is called frequently asked questions. This month's question was not frequently asked. Matter of fact, it was a rare one, but I thought I would address it. Next slide, please. So can a scout get a time extension to complete the Distinguished Conservation Service Award? Well, next slide. I'll tell you a little bit about the backstory. So the call that I got was from a conservation award advisor, and they were approached by a scout that they've been working with, and the scout has received a time extension to complete the work to earn the Eagle Scout Award. The scout would also like to finish the Distinguished Conservation Service Award. So his question was, can a scout complete the DCSA under the same time extension granted to complete the Eagle Scout Award? Well, I did some research and made some phone calls, and I found out that yes, they can. But I'd like to take you through where you can find some information specifically about this topic. So next slide. So the governing document here is going to be our guide to advancement. And in the guide to advancement, they have the age requirements that are appropriate for those that are participating in Scouts BSA. And all Scout BSA awards, merit badges, rank, Eagle Palms are only for registered Scouts and also for qualified Venturers and Sea Scouts who are not yet 18 years old. Now, Venturers and Sea Scouts qualify first by achieving that first class rank in a Scouts BSA troop, and then can work on other Scout BSA awards while they're participating in venturing or Sea Scouting. Now, the only exception that's granted for anyone older than 18 are related to Scouts that are registered beyond the age of eligibility. And there are specific guidelines for that. I will tell you that it is primarily designed for our intellectually disabled or our disabled Scouts, special needs Scouts, and also those Scouts that have been granted time extensions to complete the Eagle Scout rank. So next slide. And so there's a lot of resources provided on scouting.org under special needs scouting. So if you'd like to learn more about registering qualified members beyond the age of eligibility, you can look there. Next slide will also share with you the link to the inclusion toolbox. And both of those documents together can provide a lot of great information on how we can better serve all of our Scouts with special needs. Next slide. Now, time extensions are unique, and that is if a Scout foresees that due to no fault or choice of his or her own, it is impossible for them to complete the Eagle Scout rank before the age of 18, they may apply to the local council's advancement committee for a limited time extension. Now, this is designed so that a Scout who was on the road to Eagle and got injured and had to be, could not do work for the next 4 months, or if a natural disaster occurred that made it impossible for him to complete the award on time, there are mechanisms here to keep serving the youth and to provide with them a cushion that they could still use to work towards those advancement goals. They're only available for work toward the higher awards. So getting an extension to get your Life Scout Award does not apply. It would only apply for the Eagle Scout Award, or in the case of venturing and Sea Scouting, the Summit or the Quartermaster Award. These are only granted when necessary. Time extensions expire on the date of the Eagles Board of Review or on the approved extension expiration date, whichever comes first. No further youth advancement or awards may be earned thereafter. Next slide. So in most cases, a request must meet 3 specific tests, and I'll let you step on. The first is eligibility. Was there a reasonable amount of time left that the scout could have completed the award before the catastrophic event occurred? In other words, was it reasonable to think that the scout would have been able to earn his Eagle Scout Award in time had the event that is the cause of the extension not happened? And if they could, then the next test comes into play. Through no fault or choice of the scout, an unforeseen circumstance or life-changing event with severe consequences exists that now precludes the completion of the requirements before the deadline. So here's where the specific nature of that event is important. Because it rained on the weekend that he had planned his Eagle Scout project, that's not a significant unforeseen circumstance. But if a flood wiped out the community for a month and a half and he was not able to even get back to his home, that might be something that would qualify. So, you know, there is no one size fits all here. And the Council's Advancement Committee is empowered to try to help the scout achieve their goals. The last test is that the circumstances beyond the control of the scout and could not have been anticipated or planned. Again, because rain came in on the weekend he had planned his event, and it was the last weekend before he turned 18, I'm sorry, he could have planned much more lead time to protect himself from unforeseen weather conditions. Natural disasters are a whole different matter, and so are life-threatening circumstances where injuries might have prohibited or inhibited that scout's ability to earn the award. Next step, next slide. So we saw that the requirements for applying for an Eagle Scout. The same is true for Sea Scouts or for venturings. That age requirement is then 21. The same test must be followed through, and those scout is able to earn and work toward the quartermaster or the summit with an extension past the age of eligibility if a catastrophic event occurred. So next slide. So there are no references to the Distinguished Conservation Service Award in the Guide to Advancement. In the first case, the scout had been granted an extension for the Eagle Scout Award. So the scout can complete the DCSA before that extension expires or before the Eagle Scout Award, he has his board of review. Then the DCSA can be awarded. So the scout's been granted an extension. He may work on that award as well as any other award in scouting. The second scenario is the DCSA is considered a higher award. And although it is not explicitly included in the Guide to Advancement, a scout may apply for an extension for that award. The same criteria as stated in the 3 tests applies. Now, what we would need to know, or what a Council's Advancement Committee would need to know, is that the scout had been working with an advisor hard on that award before the catastrophic event occurred that prohibited him from completing it. And then perhaps under those extreme circumstances, an extension could be granted for the specific purpose of completing the DCSA. Now, all of these go through the Council's Advancement Committee, and in the specific case of DCSA, the Advancement Committee should be encouraged to contact Outdoor Programs and Properties or Conservation at scouting.org, and we will help guide them in the proper interpretation. So these are very rare circumstances. And I doubt I'll ever be asked that question again, but it did come up and I thought it was a very interesting question, and it was worth doing the research to look out and find some answers for this individual scout And I hope he's able to achieve his goals and earn his Distinguished Conservation Service Award. I think that's all I had. I can take a quick question or two if anybody has any on that topic. Yes, Lillian, you are absolutely correct. The requirements for a venturer earning the DCSA or a Sea Scout are different. And if they're participating in that program, they need to follow those program requirements.
Right. Thank you, Scott.
Well, thank you all for all you do to support outdoor ethics. I do want to take 1 minute and just say a hello and a welcome to Bruce Hassey. Bruce is a new member of the Outdoor Programs and Properties team for the National Council, and we look forward to a long relationship working with us in the future. So welcome, Bruce.
Thank you, Scott. That's very kind.
Hey. Now, Matt, would you like to introduce your segment here?
Sure. So I've been doing activities and such at each of the roundtables for the past few months, which has been a lot of fun. And so I created a video this time based on, well, I went for a hike on Saturday, as I often do, and had a very unique experience. And I thought perhaps instead of a game or an activity, I share kind of a teaching tip or something that I learned about teaching from nature. So let's go ahead and go on to that, Paul. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. As Scouters, and especially ones involved with outdoor ethics and conservation, we spend a great deal of time teaching in the outdoors. We teach a lot about nature, but what I'd like to talk about today is teaching with nature, or bringing to light some of the lessons nature can teach us. So this presentation will be more like a Scoutmaster's Minute than an activity, but it can give you some ideas for ways you might use nature in your teaching. I'll start by introducing you to my favorite tree, the bristlecone pine. These trees are unique to the Great Basin environment and only grow in very isolated mountain ranges that rise thousands of feet out of the desert. These trees tend to grow in very harsh and dry environments at high elevations and in poor rocky soils, places that you wouldn't ordinarily think are hospitable to trees or life in general. And yet these trees thrive here, but perhaps the most amazing thing about bristlecone pines is their longevity. Some living specimens have reached the ripe old age of 5,000 plus years and are considered to be the oldest living organisms on the planet. Bristlecones typically grow into fantastic twisted shapes as shown here. Many older bristlecones appear to be dead, but this is a smart desert strategy designed to conserve water and energy. By only allowing a small part of themselves, perhaps even a single branch, to produce needles and cones, they end up using less energy and are able to survive incredibly harsh conditions. I want to share with you a unique experience I had in a bristlecone grove growing here in Utah, one of the largest groves I have ever seen.
So I'm here in a grove of bristlecone pines up high in a mountain in Utah. And if you look at these ones over here on the sheltered side of the ridge, the ones that have more other trees growing around them, they're not your typical twisted, gnarly bristlecone pine. They grow straight and they grow tall when they're by each other over here. And that might be because they're sheltered. That might be because they grow closer together and have each other for support. If you look over here on the ridge line, this is where we get our twisted, gnarly bristlecone pines, probably because they're growing out here in an exposed location. The wind rips across this ridge here and they're exposed to the weather, and they're more isolated than they are out there. And it's just kind of interesting that the trees grow straight and true next to each other in the shelter, but out here, even though these trees have gone through a lot more hardship and grow in a lot tougher areas, they have a lot more characteristic to them. They're a lot more unique and aesthetically pleasing. And I just think that is a really, really cool trait in nature that's also kind of reflected in people as well.
As I wandered through this massive grove of bristlecone pines, I was reminded of one of my favorite poems called Good Timber by Douglas Malloch. I have it hanging in my living room, and I'd like to share this stanza from it. Good timber does not grow with ease. The stronger the wind, the stronger the trees. The further the sky, the greater the length. The more the storm, the more the strength. By sun and cold, by rain and snow, in trees and men, good timbers grow. To misquote Aldo Leopold, when we begin to see land as a community to which we belong, we not only begin to treat it with respect, but we begin to see that we are a part of the web of life, not apart from it. We see that nature is reflected in our own lives and that we have much we can learn from it. I would like to close with this quote from Robert Baden-Powell. The study of nature brings into a harmonious whole the questions of the infinite, the historic, and the microscopic as part of the great Creator's work. Thank you for joining us at this month's Roundtable, and we hope to see you next time.
Thank you, Matt. Awesome work. Thanks so much. So this is the point where I ask, please, everybody, we really value your feedback. These roundtables are for you, and we need to hear from you about what works for you, what you'd like to hear, what haven't you heard that you'd like to hear. All that stuff is so important to us. So please send us an email. There's our email address, roundtable@outdoorethics-bsa.org. And we look forward to hearing from all of you. Please let us know what we can do to support your efforts. And we always look for feedback for this particular roundtable. If you could go to that link, or you can scan the QR code. We're trying to make this as easy as we can. We like to hear from everybody too. Feedback is such a gift for us. Coming up in September is the National Outdoor Conference. Registration is open. I encourage everyone to register now. The website at the bottom is there for you, or you can search for BSA National Outdoor Conference and it pops right up. I checked that on my search engine this afternoon. So you can pop up there, read about the great things that are going to be happening there. And that's your place. You can register to sign up as well. Leave No Trace Master Educator courses. There are 4 currently scheduled. Next one coming up in August. Highly encourage everyone to take out Master Educator course if you haven't already. If you are having some financial issues and they're keeping you from going, well, we want to help you with that. The Dan Howell Scholarship is available for Scouters taking Master Educator courses in the BSA. The link for that is right there on the screen, so check that out. As I said, we want to see everybody in a Master Educator course. And finally, this being the last roundtable of this program year, I want to take a minute to say thank you. First off, of course, I went and started looking at all the people who have helped put together roundtables this year, and it's quite a list. Thank you so much to all of you. I want to particularly call out those names at the end. Paula and Scott have been tremendously helpful in putting these together, and I have to tell you that these would not happen without Michelle and Matt's support as well. So thank you to all these people for putting it together. I think it's been well worth it, and it's been great working with all of you this year. But even more so, I want to say thank you to all the people who've attended these roundtables, because it's the things you do and the passion you bring and the support you bring the youth. That's what motivates us. That's why we do these roundtables. You're the whole reason for it. Thank you. You're the reason we're here. And thank you so much. And it has been a privilege to be able to help you this year. And we look forward to having you back next year, by the way, for roundtables next year. So
Paul?
This is not like an end. This is just saying, I got to take a moment and say thank you, but we'll be back.
Paul,
Yes.
I would like to, because I forgot to do it when I did the safety moment.
Yeah.
I would like everybody to keep Michelle in your thoughts, because her family's having a really tough time right now, and it seems like every time they turn a corner, it goes bad again. So please say a prayer too, and keep her in your thoughts because she is the energy and the passion of the roundtable, as Paul is and as Matt is, and somebody else. I forgot.
Yeah. And
Thank
on my
you.
list, I probably forgot somebody, and I apologize, whoever that was, but thank you to all of you. I'd like to close out with, as I always do, with my Leopold moment here. And this is from December in a Sand County Almanac. Hard years, of course, come to pines as they do to men, and these are recorded as shorter thrusts, that is, shorter spaces between the successive whorls of branches. So what I'd like you to do is take some youth out and go find a pine tree. Estimate its age by counting the whorls of branches. Did you know each whorl of branch is going to be a year? So you can count the whorls and estimate how old that tree is. If you can't find a pine, find another tree and just observe it and see if you can learn something about its history and about how old it might be. And by the way, I suggest in doing this, I wouldn't pick a 150-foot tall tree to do this on, but and then ask the kids, can you find evidence of good years and bad years? Good growth, hard years, can you find that in the tree? Teach the kids to look at the trees and see some of the history and some of the story that's there, and once again, to build their connection with nature. And with that, I want to thank everybody for coming to this roundtable. It's been awesome having you. And we're going to stop the recording now.